Hi everyone, I am Dr. CHITTAJIT SARKAR, Head of the Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering Department, Swami Vivekananda Institute of Science and Technology. Today I will be discussing about some basic concept on VLSI. So first of all, you have to know the basic difference between active and passive component. Active and passive component. Passive component basically means the component that does not require any external source to make it alive. And they're just like your resistor, capacitor, inductor. A active component means it requires some external source to make it alive. Just your transistor, op-amp, MOS, FET and integrated circuits. So next, what do you mean by circuit? Circuit means just you add your active and passive component, and by using some connecting wire you will be getting some circuit. And that circuit will be, if that circuit is complex, then it's very difficult to track if there will be any fault inside your circuit. So people are thinking about to change that technology, and that technology is called your planar technology. Planar technology means on a single plane you can implement your active component and passive component, and you can connect them by using some layer inside that chip. So that single plane technology or planar technology is called integrated circuit or IC. So if you use this IC with some another component or another ICs, and that will be called your circuit, and if you combine that circuit, that is called your hardware. So there are two types of ICs. One is called your programmable, another is called your non-programmable. So programmable IC means you have to give some instruction to that IC to perform some particular operation. And for your non-programmable IC, you just give the input and corresponding output, you will be getting that output pin of that IC. So that is the basic difference between your programmable chip, programmable IC and non-programmable IC. So here, if the instruction required for your programmable IC is called your code, and if you combine this code, that is called your program. If you combine that program, that is called software. So your hardware and software part, both when you integrate, is called your system. Just like your motherboard, or just like your PCB board for your AC machine, PCB or for any other circuitry or inside your television set. So this is about your concept on your circuit, hardware and software part, and system is next we move on to some basic background so that you have clear cut idea about this VLSI part. So first we start with from some history of our semiconductor. So in the year of 1947, transistor was invented, and that transistor was first active component and developed by Bell Laboratory in the year of 1947. But before that, the rival of transistor was vacuum tube. But the problem with the vacuum tube is that it will take a larger space and consume high power. So that rival part was removed by using a transistor. So the invention of transistor has revolutionized our IC industry, and after commercialization of the transistor, each and every electronic circuit started wearing a symbol solid state, signifying is conquer over its rival vacuum tube. So here next one is our invention of our integrated circuit in the year of 1959. So first invented by Texas Instrument, and that IC were fabricated by Fairchild. So IC means some particular active component inside that chip on a single wafer. So in the year of 1959, there were only 3 ICs invented by Texas Instruments, collaborated with Fairchild. Then one scientist was there, Moore. He just collected data from Texas Instruments and Fairchild. Data means number of transistor per IC. So he just plot a curve or draw a curve along x-axis, that was your year of invention, and y-axis number of transistor per IC. So here in the year of 1965 he just extrapolated that curve, because during that time he had only 3 data means number of transistor per IC, and he extrapolated that curve and predicted that in the year of 1975 the number of transistor would be 65,000. Then he waited for 10 years, and after 10 years, here first in the year of 1971 first microprocessor were developed. Microprocessor was 4004 microprocessor. During that time, one semiconductor player has come into that market, that is very famous player, Intel. Intel has come to introduce his first microprocessor, 4004 microprocessor, that was widely used inside a calculator. In the year of 1976, the microcontroller first developed. So Moore got some data from Intel, and during that time there was another kind of IC that is called dynamic RAM, DRAM, was developed, and he got a data, that means the number of transistor per IC from that data, and he just proved that his prediction was correct. That means the number of transistor would be 65,000 in the year of 1975. Then he just converted his prediction into some law that is called Moore's law. In that Moore's law, he told that the number of transistor or active component would double in every 18 months. That is called your Moore's law. So here you have some advantages, evolution of ICs. Vacuum tube, I have already told about that. Vacuum tube, then transistor, you will combine that transistor, you will be getting gate, and then you have ICs. And these are the basic reliability or advantages of your ICs. High performance, high reliability, so that means it's very easy to track any fault inside your circuit. High applicability, low power dissipation, power consumption is less, low cost, and high design time, fast design time, and simple design process. So these are the advantages of our ICs, and this shows some semiconductor devices. You have semiconductor, one is diode, then transistor family again divided into 2 parts, BJT and FET, and FET again gate ICs, and FET is JFET. Then MOSFET will be 3 type, NMOS, PMOS, and CMOS. Then gate and IC, SSI, MSI, LSI, VLSI. So this shows the Moore's law, that is, he is the co-founder of Intel. So his prediction, according to this law, the number of transistor would double in every 18 months or exponentially grow. So that is your Moore's law. It is shown from this curve, that is year of invention, and this is the number of transistor, and this is data from Intel. So the 4004, 8080, 8086, 80286, 80386, Pentium 1 processor, coprocessor, Pentium 3, Pentium 4. So just like this. So next come to the nomenclature. What do you mean by VLSI? Very large scale integration. So depending upon that number of transistor, we can classify the IC technology integration level. First one is called SSI, then MSI, LSI and VLSI. So depending upon the number of transistor per IC, we have classified our integration process. So VLSI is above 10 to the power 5 to 10 to the power 7 number of transistor per IC. So that means IC will contain that much number of transistor. So here basic technology is that when we are trying to increase the number of transistor inside your chip, that means we have to reduce the size of a transistor. Reduction of size is very important part. So here what we have done, when we reduce that size, the power which is required, that means voltage which is required to activate our active component will be less. So first the international standard voltage was 5 volt, then when you reduce the size of your transistor or MOS, that voltage is reduced to 3.3 volt, then 1.2 volt, then 0.6 volt. So depending upon that size of your transistor, you need some less, or we need the voltage that will be less than previous one. So if you reduce the size, that means we are reducing the voltage required for activation of your transistor or MOS. So why the VLSI design? Here I've already told you that we reduce the size. Obviously speed requirement is very high and power requirement or power dropped across this MOS or transistor will be less. So let us move on to the VLSI design technique. There are 4 different type of VLSI chip. One is called your user programmable, semi-custom ASIC, full custom ASIC and system on chip. So user programmable is divided into PLD, programmable logic device, PLA, PAL, SPLD and CPLD, and another programmable device is field programmable gate array, that is FPGA. So gate FPGA consists of your lookup table. So first on VLSI PLD, application specific, full custom and semi custom. So here we will be discussing about first one is a PLD and FPGA. So CAD tools are reduced that effect and effort and low design cost, low NRE. NRE means non-recurring engineering cost. So that is very important for the development of any chip, and high unit cost, lower performance as compared to ASIC, better than general digital design. So these are the feature of our programmable logic devices. So first one is we'll be discussing or briefing about our CPLD. CPLD basically denoted, or the nomenclature is that complex programmable logic devices. CPLD uses a less board space and improve reliability and reduced cost. And CPLD are great at handling wide and complex getting and blistering speeds. And the CPLD contains multiple logic block which communicate with one another using a signals routed via a programmable interconnect. Basically CPLD is nothing but some macro cell. Macro cell means you have some OR gate with some flip-flop. So that is called your CPLD block. Here this is called your macro cell. If some interconnects is there, gate is there, flip-flop. So gate with flip-flop is called your macro cell. So CPLD consists of your macro cells. Here this is called PAL-like block or macro cells. Here it's easy. Why we use a CPLD? So this is your easier design, lower development cost and more product revenue, and reduced board area, reconfigurable and flexibility. Next one is your FPGA, field programmable gate array. So the field programmable gate array basically consists of our configurable logic block CLB, some IO connection IO pad is there. So here basically represent your programmable IO block, and these are represent your configurable logic block CLB. So this is nothing but some your a lookup table based CLB or mux based CLB. So these are the advantages of our FPGA, and FPGA is very important while designing our prototype system. Prototype system means when you are design in the R&D stage. R&D stage means you don't need to put that product to your market. So before commercialization of your product, you have to use it for your product is not ready for your commercialization. So that is very important part. And the basic advantage is that you can reconfigure your FPGA when your product is freezed, or that means you have finalized your product. Then you can go for another type of chip that is called ASIC, and ASIC does not, you cannot change any program or any system or any circuit when you are using next design, that is called your ASIC. So ASIC basically two type, one is called your semi-custom, another is called your full custom. Semi-custom means you used your pre-designed, pre-tested and pre-characterized some library from previous design. So that is called your semi-custom. And here low design cost, high NRE cost. NRE means your non-recurring engineering cost, and here medium performance. So when your design is been complete, then you can use your ASIC, and you cannot change your design while using your ASIC. So here these are the advantages, or which way to go for your FPGA and ASIC. Depending upon your requirement, you have to choose whether you go for your ASIC or for your FPGA. And next one is your full custom. Full custom means you design your IC from your scratch level. So that is called handcrafted. So you don't use any pre-designed, pre-tested and pre-characterized IO block or your logic blocks. So it will require high design cost, NRE cost and high performance, and basically you can optimize your area and also optimize your power consumption because you are the designer of that chip. So that is the biggest advantage of your full custom ASIC. Next one is your system on chip. System on chip, basically you just integrate our microprocessor part as well as some ASIC part, and some DSP chip will be there. So all the functionalities will be integrated inside some chip. So that is called your system on chip SoC. So here I2C protocol, it will support I2C protocol, SSI lines are there, some PCI interface or PCI Express interface can be used here. Some it will provide some audio and video functionalities. On some conference chip will be there. So this is the basic function of your system on chip. Now let us come to our first VLSI design flow and tools are required. So first one, when you are designing some chip, you go for the functionalities of this chip. That means what type of function you need and what will be the requirement, power requirement, how many pins will be there, what will be the size of your chip. That will be decided during your specification process. So after when your specification has been finalized, you can describe the functional design. You describe the module wise function. So how to use different type of module and what will be the function of the different module you have to design. That is called your functional design. Then inside that functional block, what type of logic function will be there, you have to design. So that is called your logic design. Then inside your logic circuit, what circuit will be there, inside your logic design what circuit will be there, that is called your circuit design. Then when your circuit has been finalized, you go for your physical implementation of that circuit, that means implementation of your transistor or MOS. So that is called your physical design. When you place that physical component, then you can go for fabrication. So these are the basic design flow for your VLSI process. Next, you have some vendor for our chip. Xilinx is the first vendor, and that is they are famous for your FPGA. Next one is your Altera, Lattice is there, Actel is there, Lucent is there, Cypress is there, Atmel is there. So these are the basic player for IC industry, vendors for IC industry. So this shows the market scenario for Xilinx, Altera and Lattice and Actel. The Xilinx almost consume 52% of that market. So now let us conclude our some introductory part of our IC. So first one is that meet the market requirement. You have to check the specification, what chip will be required for that market. Then satisfying the customer needs. Some customer needs mean what will be the size of that chip, what will be the power consumption of that chip, what will be the pin configuration of this chip, what will be the speed of that chip. All these things you have to note down. Next one, increasing the functionality. So what function you need from that chip? You need some logical operation, arithmetic logical operation, you need some multiplier unit, you need some another function division unit. So all this functionality you have to understand depending upon your customer needs. Then you have to think about the reduction of your cost. So you have to integrate all this functionality, and after getting that functionality you have to go for the reduction of your cost, because cost is very important for your commercialization of your product. Next one is this will be achieved by using a next generation silicon technology and new design concept and tool and high level integration. So silicon technologies means we are moving from scaling, that means higher scaling to lower scaling, that means we are reducing the size of your transistor. So reduction of your size means we are reducing the voltage level, that means that voltage is nothing but biasing voltage of our active component. First we used 5 volt, then 3.3 volt, then 1.2 volt, then 0.6 volt. So for core processor we are using a 0.6 volt for the core part and 3.3 volt for the outer IO part. So these are all about our IC design. Thank you. That's all.